Welcome on to the show tonight, guys. This is Studio 321. This is your host, Eddie B. So how you guys doing tonight? I hope you're doing well out there. I'm down here in Central Florida. Actually, it got a little bit chilly tonight. You can see I got my hoodie on. And, you know, chilly in Florida, we're like 65, 70 degrees. You know, it's kind of cold for us. We're a little bit thin-skinned down here. So, anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. So anyways, guys, there's a ton of stuff going on around the world. You know, I'm not a news guy. I do opinion. I'm kind of going to give it to you whether you like it or not. That's just the way that it is with me. I wanted to talk about the Venezuela, how it compares to Greenland, and how it compares to Cuba situation with Trump, right? A lot of hot talk going on around. I'm arguing online all the time with people. They're out there saying we're trying to start wars. They're out there saying that, you know, we should have never removed Maduro from Venezuela. Lots of talk, lots of fighting going on online. So the truth is, I realized during this whole process from talking to people that they actually don't know much about what's actually going on, the history of all of this stuff, and why it's being done all right now. So we're going to get into a little bit of that. But first, guys, please, you know, if you like my video, please like and subscribe to my channel. It helps. It's free. It'll just send videos over to your phone every time I put something new out. So if you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button, guys. But anyways, let's get into it. Okay, so going back in my own history, I've never been an interventionist, right? I'm not the kind of guy, I don't want to run around the world starting a bunch of wars and fixing everybody's problems, because myself, like everyone else, we feel like we need to fix our own problems first, right? We got plenty of problems in the United States that need to be handled. So, but in the situation with Venezuela, I do understand, and I want to break that down for you guys tonight. And it actually applies to Cuba and Greenland as well. So here we go. Okay, when Trump first came into office, I remember he made a statement one time. He said, one of my main goals is to clean up our own backyard, meaning the countries surrounding the United States. You know, some of them were acting as enemies, and they weren't cooperating with us, and you know, basically they were friendlier with China and Russia, and you know, that in geopolitics, that's a no-no. You know, if we're the superpower in the West, and we should call the shots, because the truth is, it's our responsibility to protect all the countries around us. If you notice, most of the countries around us barely have an army. Most of them have, you know, militias, small armies, but they don't have to worry about being invaded or you know, their sovereignty, because the truth is, nobody like China or Russia is going to come over to this half of the world and invade them because of the United States. We protect them. But along with that protection, we want cooperation. We want, you know, trade. We want fair treatment. And we also want to have a say in things that happen in our hemisphere. We do not want our neighbors and our allies trading with our enemies, selling them oil, you know, things of that nature, cooperating with their government, unless we're at least advising on that, okay? Or we have some say in it. Okay, so when you look at this whole picture, the Venezuelan picture, we'll start with that first. Then we're going to go to Greenland and talk about Cuba a little bit. Okay. When you look at the Venezuelan situation, you have to go back a long time. It's about 20 years, back to the Hugo Chavez days, okay? Hugo Chavez took over Venezuela. You know, I believe he said he was a socialist, but he's actually a communist. And you know, what they did then is actually, let me rewind that. A little bit before that, American oil companies had gone down to Venezuela, and we basically told them, look, you have all the oil. We have the means to build the infrastructure to get the oil. Let us build the oil refineries and the you know, refinement plants and the ways to ship it and all that stuff, and the way to get it out of the ground, and we'll make your country rich, and you know, you'll make a deal with us, give us some profits. Right. So they made that deal. So American oil companies were down there. Venezuela was getting rich. They were actually one of the richer countries in our hemisphere back in those days. Now, this is going back about, I'm going to say, 20, 25 years now. Hugo Chavez comes into power. He's a socialist, you know, promises the world, you know, everything's free, everything's this, everything's that. They bite, and they you know, they buy into it, because that's the human weakness, is just, you know, taking the free stuff, not realizing it's never free. So Chavez gets in power, and they kick the oil companies out. They tell them basically, get out of our country. And then, because their idea was, why are we sharing money with the Americans when this is our oil? Yet, again, our oil companies built all the structure down there to mine the oil. So that was number one, right? So that whole situation's going on. Hugo Chavez is in power for a while. The country's going downhill because the government's keeping all the money for the oil and the people are going broke. Typical socialist situation. I believe he dies. Maduro takes power, right? Same crap with Maduro. He's just like Chavez, dictator, socialist / communist type. Now, everybody likes to say he has right-leaning tendencies. In some ways he did, but that's not even near the truth, okay? That's just a cover for his shenanigans. So anyways, very anti-American, used to taunt us all the time. But here's the deal. The main problem, not the fact that they kicked American oil companies out of the country. The main problem was they've been dealing with China and Russia selling them oil against our wishes. Now, you might say, well, who cares? They're making their money, blah, blah, blah. No. The problem with that is oil fuels armies, okay? And we always are at odds with China and Russia. They build armies, we build armies. They try to make theirs bigger, we try to make theirs. It's always an arms race of some sort between the countries. So the fact that they're selling oil to those enemies of ours was pissing our government off. Now, everybody on the left especially likes to run around and say, well, Trump's so crazy. He's a dictator. He's doing all this stuff and blah, 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 blah. Same, talking about Greenland and Cuba and Venezuela. But the truth is, none of these ideas were Trump's, okay? And that's what I've been trying to tell people online lately. A lot of these ideas, like, for example, getting rid of Maduro, annexing Greenland or buying it or leasing it, the whole problem with the leader down in Cuba, all of that stuff to fix those problems or get rid of those people or however we dealt with those situations, those are 30-year-old problems. Our government has been talking about dealing with this for 30 years, okay? They wanted to get rid of Castro when he was in Cuba. They just never did it. They've wanted to annex Greenland forever, right? For years and years. I heard that talk 10 years ago, okay? Obviously now, since Trump's in power, everybody wants to make him the bad guy because he's actually trying to do it. But I'm telling you right now, they've had this stuff on a list for 20 years to get this stuff done or to get somebody in there that wanted to tackle it. And look, we all know Trump, man. He's a businessman. He's not a politician. He operates at 100 miles an hour. He's going to go in there and he's got a list. I guarantee he's probably got it written on paper. It's sitting on his desk, just checking the box. Okay, this one's done. Next one, let's go to the next. I mean, that's the way businessmen do things. They find what's wrong and they fix it. Okay. They ain't worried about the consequences. They're not worried about what the people are going to think. If we need to get it done for pro-America, he's going to do it. Okay? So, the Venezuela situation. So, it's been festering for a long time. It's really not about the drug boats. I said that on my last podcast. It sounds good. It was marketed to the American people that way because whenever you market anything to the American people, you have to put some kind of heartfelt stuff behind it. Normally, there's other things involved, to be honest. If I was going to break it down by percentage, I would say it was 10% about the drugs coming into the United States, 60% probably about the oil and gas sales to Russia and China because that's big. Okay, that's big. Those geopolitics, we don't play with that, man. Maybe 10% revenge for the way Maduro's treated us over the last so many years, and they thumb their nose at us, and they're always just undermining us in any way that they could. And then maybe I don't know what we got left, 20%. I would say maybe 20% about the actual oil. Because the truth is we don't need Venezuela's oil. Yes, there's a lot of it down there. They consider it kind of like dirty oil. I don't know exactly what that means. It has to be refined a little more because it's not as pure or whatever. But they have a ton of it. But we don't actually need it. But what we need is cooperation from our neighbors to not deal with our enemies unless we help make the deal or, approve it, if you will. Okay. So that's the Venezuela in a nutshell. But again, this was not Trump's crazy idea that he pulled out of the air. And people love to say that. Okay? Oh, Trump's insane. He's a dictator. Look what he's doing. Look. No. They've wanted to do this on both sides for years. Okay? Years. And Trump is the only one with the guts to go through with it. I love the guy for that. I respect him. Okay? Because what you're going to see is when he's done with all this stuff and he leaves office and he's the bad guy, right? What you're going to find out is, man, America is in a really strong, good position. And history will judge him well for that. He will be considered the greatest president of modern times. I don't care what the lefties say. I don't care what, when they look back on history, he will be considered the greatest of all, modern president of all time. Okay, so when you really look at Venezuela, it was a win-win. We slowed down the drugs. Yes, we've realigned them with oil sales. Now, we've also sent a message to the other neighbors who are Colombia's on the edge. They're always giving us a bunch of grief. Cuba, we've sent a strong message to them that, hey, you're in our neighborhood. We are the boss, which we are. We're the superpower. It's not bullying when we are responsible to take care of them, because we are. As a matter of fact, we have no choice. Even if we hated our neighbors, if somebody from, let's say, China or Russia or whatever was going to invade them, we would be involved in that war, because we cannot allow anybody to be invaded that's neighbors or in our hemisphere. Okay? It's just not going to happen. So we're responsible for these people, and so we have to have say in what happens in our neighborhood. Okay. Now I'm going to compare that to Cuba and Greenland. Let's go to Greenland first, right? Again, this is another one of them situations where I'm arguing with people online and they have no idea what they're talking about. And it's frustrating because that's what you realize when you talk to people. They form opinions because of a small snapshot of something they saw on TV, and they think that opinion is just the right way, and they want to live and die by that opinion, right? Okay. Why do we want Greenland? Okay. Greenland is basically an island out in the middle of the ocean. It's a big chunk of ice, okay? Only about 25% of Greenland is inhabitable. The rest of it is like a giant glacier. It's that cold, okay? If you go 800 miles north from the tip of Maine, directly north, you're at Greenland, okay? It's basically like above Canada, in the ocean between us and Russia, okay? Now, the only reason we really want Greenland is because of its strategic position in the ocean, okay? It's got about 30 to 50,000 inhabitants. Actually, I think it's 55 or something, 55,000 inhabitants. Not many people, because most of it is uninhabitable. It's so cold out there. We do have a U.S. military base already there. That was another argument. People were like, oh my God, the U.S. is going to invade Greenland. I can't believe it. And I'm like, we don't need to invade them. We have a base right there. Okay. It's an Air Force base. It's right there on the island. Okay. So what is the strategy behind owning Greenland? Okay. The Arctic shipping lanes that Russia and China uses go between Greenland and Russia up there, okay? So if we make Greenland a state or a territory, what that does is that gives us sovereign rights over the waterways around Greenland, okay? I believe, with the regular United States coast, it's like this. I think customs is enforceable out to 25 miles, okay? And then we get fishing rights and economic rights, which is like fishing, oil, minerals, out to 200 miles off our coast. That means other countries cannot come within that range to fish our waters, take our minerals, or anything like that. We also get the air above the sea. Okay, so that's a big deal. So imagine going 800 miles north of Maine, getting Greenland, and then going from the tip of Greenland 200 miles further north for our mineral rights and our fishing rights and in oil rights, and now you have narrowed the Arctic, what would we call that? The traffic lanes, we'll say, for the shipping lanes up there, okay, that Russia and China can use. You've narrowed them significantly. And look, you might want to say, well, why would we do that? Why does that matter? Look, it's all adversarial stuff. Again, this is geopolitics. You know, we control these waterways, they control their waterways, this and that. Things change. Like we're always manipulating little things around our countries to try to get advantage over each other. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's the chess game on planet Earth. That's what it is. You know, we move a little, they move a little. It is what it is. So that's one reason. We narrow the shipping lanes that they can use. It keeps them further away from America. Number two, right? Missile defense. Now, I don't know what we have up there at our Air Force Base right now because that's top secret stuff. But I know that they want a more advanced or maybe more of a missile system in Greenland. Because think about it. Just out of scenario, if Russia or China was ever going to launch a nuclear weapon towards us, you get earlier detection, you know, the further north you would be. I mean, I'm pretty sure we know when something leaves the ground over there anyways, but it's just for missile defense. I would imagine we could probably put up missile, interceptor missiles or whatever we're going to do in Greenland. But they really want it for missile defense and national security. And that's a big deal, right? I mean, again, geopolitics. So that's the second part. Now, the third part, they say mineral rights, which there is some rare earth minerals up there. I know that if we do acquire a lease there or acquire the land or whatever, that there are some mineral companies that are going to be involved. I've already researched that because their stocks are going through the roof. In going up and extracting those minerals. I would imagine in those harsh conditions, it's not very easy. So it's probably going to be limited to a very few companies who can extract the minerals because it's really it's like the Arctic out there. There's so much ice, it's not like you can inhabit some of those areas for very long. But, however they're going to do it, they will do it. So we're talking about, number one, the shipping lanes, okay? Pushing China and Russia further back away from our continent, which is always a good thing. Number two, national security. We want missile defense on the island. It just gets us, again, we're closer to their continent. If they launch, we could launch defensive missiles a lot faster, things like that. And number three, the mineral rights. And I don't know if there's oil up there. There might be, but again, we've got oil out the wazoo now. We don't really need it. It would be nice, but we don't need it. So, why is Trump saying all this stuff? I've been watching this very close since day one. And Trump's style is always the same. He goes in there, he tries to publicly insult people, he stirs them up. He says some real, controversial stuff to get everybody paying attention. And then what he does is he usually quietly goes in and they make some type of deal. I feel like he gets everybody in such a tizzy on purpose so that when they get to the bargaining table, they just want to make a deal and get it over with because they don't want to hear about it anymore. They don't want him embarrassing them anymore. And the truth is, man, you can say what you want about that style. That's effective. It worked in Panama. Trump wanted the Chinese influence out of Panama. He went down and told Panama, hey, if you don't run them out of here, we're going to take the canal back from you. And Panama make $3 billion a year off that canal. So obviously they were going to listen. And Trump was serious about that one. I know he would go take that back by force because we built the Panama Canal. But that was another podcast I did before if you wanted to go look at that one. But so anyways, he gets them all up in a tizzy, gets everybody embarrassed and angry. And then he goes in there and he goes, hey, look, man, we'll make a deal with you. Let's do this. Now, I don't know if he's just looking for a lease. I had heard him mention before, but maybe a 100-year lease of the island. I don't know how that would work. Again, I'm not involved in that situation. But he says we're going to get the island either way. Now, I don't know what that means exactly because Trump, man, he might do it. But the way I see it is Denmark doesn't need the island. It's got 50,000 inhabitants. They kind of are their own little thing over there. I think they pay taxes to the Danish government. I'm sure the United States would more than compensate, those taxes probably for the next 50 years by buying it. So I don't know where it's going to go. To be honest with you, if you're asking my opinion, I think he's serious. I think he wants this island, and I think he's going to get it. I do. This isn't a military invasion type situation. It's not. I think he's going to force Denmark to make a deal somehow. But we'll see what happens. I believe this Wednesday they're supposed to meet with them and discuss some terms. So we'll see what comes out of it. I'll keep an eye on it and I'll let you know. But also you keep an eye out for it because it's going to be interesting. Okay, third and lastly, the Cuba situation. Okay, but before I get into that, I want you to think back, and I want you to just look at it and remember the patterns that are taking place here. Trump always does the same thing. Comes in loud, insults people, gets people on edge, then they go in and quietly make a deal. Says a bunch of controversial stuff to get everybody angry, and then he goes in and makes a deal. So when everybody's out there talking about Trump's trying to start wars, he's not. If you pay attention to how he actually does it, it's the same pattern over and over again, and it's very, very effective. As a matter of fact, a lot of our politicians should watch and learn from the way he does things because the guy's like a poker player, man. He's super smart. Okay, Cuba. What's the deal with Cuba? Obviously, we know the old school regime from Castro was always a thorn in our side. If Trump would have been in office 20 years ago, he would have done the same thing to Castro that he did to Maduro. He'd be gone. But so anyways, Castro died. The new regime now isn't much better, to be honest with you. They're still communist. They're still broke. What Trump has done now is Cuba was getting their oil from Venezuela. Okay. Now Trump is stopping that. He has already stopped it. He has frozen all oil from Venezuela to Cuba. So what's going to happen next is they've already been crumbling down in Cuba. Their economy's terrible. The people are poor, just like every other communist regime around the country, right? So him stopping that oil supply is going to widen the cracks in that country, and I'm pretty sure that real soon here that regime is either going to A, make a real good deal with the United States, or B, they're going to be out of power because the people down there are already on the edge. They're not going to take this anymore. They're poor. Think about this, right? Cuba's 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Cuba, if done right, could be as nice as Florida. It could be. They've got tropical weather. They could have beautiful beaches. They could have resorts down there. Americans would vacation down there constantly. The Cubans could make all the money from that. I mean, if the Cuban government was smart, they would just set this up in a way that they would own all the resorts, all the stuff that was happening down there as far as tourism, and then open up the country, let some American companies build down there, but the Cubans own, you see. And man, it would be amazing. Okay, it would be a tropical paradise. You'd have cruise ships going down there back and forth from Cuba to Florida. I mean, Cubans could come here on regular vacations like no problem at all, no restrictions, right? And it would just be amazing. But right now, with the current leadership they have, you still can't do that. Okay, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. But remember, when you're watching Trump, don't listen to what he says. You have to watch what he does, because what he does is genius. The way he sets this up is like he's going to buy a company, not a country. And he goes in there and he tries to weaken the other guy's position. So when they come to the table, they just want the deal. They just want to make a deal so they can get this over with. Trump will stop embarrassing him on TV. And look, man, say what you want about the guy. He is an animal, and he's super smart, and I like the way he does things. But anyways, guys, I hope that cleared some things up for you. Again, I see it online all the time. The truth is, people just don't have any knowledge about what's actually going on. And if you sit down and you study the history on these places and the history on them with us, you can start to see the broader picture. You know, and the broader picture is we've wanted these things done for a long, long time. This is not Trump's idea. Okay, Trump just has the guts to get it done. All right, guys, I hope you like my videos. If you like them, please like and subscribe. This is Eddie from Studio 321. I'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.